We are right at 5:31, so I think we'll go ahead and get started with some team introductions, and hopefully the rest of our attendees will be able to jump on while we're doing that. To start off, my name is Christine Fife, and I am with Big Sky Public Relations, and we work closely with Montana Department of Transportation on projects and studies like these to help with communications. And I will be your main point of contact if you have questions or comments about this project. I'm the person that you'll want to get in touch with, and I'm going to be our guide through this open house today. I appreciate you joining us, and I hope you'll be a little bit patient with us because sometimes our technology likes to throw us some curveballs sometimes. So we're going to do our best. This will be a pretty short presentation with the primary focus of providing information regarding the need for this study and give you an opportunity to provide input. Joining me this evening are Bob Vosen, Jacqueline Smith, and Cameron Cloberdance from the Montana Department of Transportation, and April Girth from Robert Petcha and Associates. Would you all like to take a moment and say hello?
Thanks, Christine. This is I'm Bob Vosen, the District Administrator for District 1 with the Montana Department of Transportation, which is generally Western Montana. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your schedule tonight to sit in and listen to us and hopefully interact with us using our Q&A system towards the end of the presentation. Again, just want to thank everyone, and I'll let Jacqueline introduce herself next.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jacqueline Smith, and I am the pre-construction engineer for District 1 with MDT. Cameron, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Thank you. My name is Cameron Cloberdance, and I'm with MDT's Consultant Design Bureau. And my role with this project is I coordinate the effort between the consultants and other MDT folks. Thanks. I'll turn it over to April.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm April Girth with Robert Petcha and Associates, and we are the engineering firm hired by MDT to perform the initial study for the intersection and eventually the final design of the project.
Thanks, everyone. I also want to introduce Katie Cleets from Big Sky Public Relations. She'll be monitoring any questions or comments that come through that Q&A system. Katie, would you introduce yourself and let us know how that Q&A will work?
Thanks, Christine. Good evening, everyone. As Christine had said, I'm Katie Cleets, also with Big Sky Public Relations, and supporting the great work that Christine does for communications. So throughout tonight, we do have an active interest in hearing directly from you and what your thoughts are, what your questions are, and certainly if you have any concerns. And the best way that you can do that this evening is by throwing them into that Q&A system. So at the bottom, you have a little panel. It says Q&A, and there's two chat bubbles as an icon. If you click on that, it will open up a text screen, and you can add in any questions or comments, concerns, anything that you want to share with the team. We will have time at the end specifically to address those. We're more than happy to go through them at any time. And then Christine's information will also be shared at the end of the presentation. And Christine, I did want to point out that we have at least one attendee who's calling in by phone. So we'll want to make sure to read the phone numbers at least a couple times so that folks can take them down. Thanks.
Thanks for pointing that out, Katie. I appreciate it. Like Katie said, my contact information will be shared at the end of this presentation. So if you prefer to touch base with us offline, we'll make sure that you have that information, and you can feel free to reach out to me at any time throughout this study. We'll be conducting a survey throughout the meeting, so you'll have the option to participate in that survey and provide some feedback just about your relationship to this intersection and some primary concerns that you may have. I also want to mention that we will be recording this meeting, and it will be made available for viewing on the project webpage following the wrap up of this presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And that said, I'm going to turn things back over to Bob to give us an overview of this project.
Thanks, Christine. I think everybody that's joining us tonight is probably familiar with what is commonly known as the Clearwater Junction, which is the intersection of Highway 83 and Highway 200. It serves as a key connection point for travelers in Western Montana. People traveling to Kalispell and Missoula, both coming from the communities of Helena, Great Falls, and other points east and south of there. utilize this critical point in our transportation network here in Western Montana. So it's also utilized by a large number of commercial and industrial vehicles. In addition to that, it's also home to one of the, if not the most frequented boat check station in Montana. There's also a weigh station at the location and a rest area. And finally, we have a busy convenience store. So the intersection has a variety of use, and as I said, is a key component to the transportation network of Western Montana. So I think right now Christine has some survey questions or polling questions to ask about some of our attendees tonight. So Christine, you want to pop those up?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I'm going to go ahead and launch this first poll question, which is, where do you live in relation to the Clearwater Junction intersection? So if you just take a moment to answer that poll question. Thanks. I do have one more question before we move on to the next slide. And that is, how frequently do you drive through the intersection? Thank you for taking a moment to share your thoughts on those. It looks like most of our attendees this evening live fairly close to this intersection and are traveling through that intersection multiple times a week. So I am going to turn things over to April, who will talk to us about why this intersection was chosen for the study.
Thank you, Christine. As you'll see in a few moments, there have been a number of crashes in the vicinity of the Clearwater Junction intersection, including one fatality. And MDT identified this as a crash cluster that needed investigation to improve safety in the area. And additionally, traffic has been noted to stack quite a ways up Highway 83 during the busy summer months, which has been causing some delay to travelers and some difficulties either turning onto the roadway from adjacent properties or turning onto Highway 200 from Highway 83. So MDT began a preliminary investigation of the safety of the intersection in 2018 and continued until late 2020, at which time they contracted with RPA and initiated this study to analyze option and choose a course of action. But before we can develop improvement options for the intersection, we need to identify all of the issues and all of the constraints that are located in the vicinity. So to do that, we conducted a number of studies that Jacqueline will discuss a little bit later. But one of these studies investigated the past crash history and the traffic volumes that are moving through the intersection now, and which I'll talk about a little bit here. So we counted the number of the cars that are actually using the intersection and turning from and to the adjacent businesses and facilities. And we use this data to predict future use. So traffic volume in the intersection now has grown a little over 2% per year over the last 5 years. So if this same rate continues, by the year 2045, during the summer months, we could see as many as 12,000 vehicles each day passing through the intersection. And during the summer months and holiday weekends, these long lines of cars can accumulate on Highway 83, and this is causing the delays I mentioned before. Local business owners we've spoken to and the staff that are at the boat check and the truck weigh station, they've reported many close calls of almost crashes and some other minor crashes, as well as the difficulties turning and moving in and out of the different facilities. They also noted some pretty high speeds on Montana 200 that also contributed to the difficulties of people making that turn. So Christine has another survey question she'd like to ask to see what your experience of the intersections have been.
I do. Thanks, April. Our next polling question is, what has your experience been with traffic at the Clearwater Junction intersection? Thank you. As you can see, it looks like people have experienced anywhere from some traffic to significant traffic issues. So we appreciate you taking a moment to take that polling question, and we're going to turn things back over to April for some crash statistics.
So as noted previously, the cluster of crashes in the vicinity of the intersection is the reason that MDT began investigating the intersection for improvements. For the last 16 years for the 16 years between 2003 and 2019, there were 35 crashes reported by the Highway Patrol in the intersection in the close vicinity. Of those crashes, 22 were minor fender benders and resulted in property damage only. 12 resulted in injuries, and 1 resulted in a fatality. So of the 35 reported crashes, 43% occurred during the summer months, 37% in the winter months, and 17% during spring and fall. So what's important about these numbers that it indicates to us that there's a significant safety problem all year long, not just at times where we may expect it from the winter icy conditions or from the high summer volume of visitor traffic. So even though it seems, as a Montanan, you would think that most of our crashes occur in the winter because of those tough conditions and the dark, we do find always an uptick in the summer as well due to the visitor traffic. And Christine has another survey question to help us see how you feel what the issues are in this intersection.
Thanks, April. Next question is, what do you believe are the primary causes of crashes at this intersection? So it looks like a pretty good toss up between high traffic volumes and absent-minded drivers. So that's really great insight. Thanks for taking a moment to share your thoughts on that. And next we're going to move to Jacqueline, who's going to talk to us about the purpose of this study.
Thank you, Christine. You may be asking, why are we doing a study when this area already has been looked at, especially recently? And the reason is that the previous evaluation was focused more at the existing conditions to verify if there is a crash cluster and if safety could fund a project to further evaluate solutions for this intersection. This study will focus on why the crashes are occurring and what are the future needs. The biggest reason why we are doing this study is to identify the most appropriate solution for this Clearwater Junction intersection. At this time, we do not have an identified solution for this intersection. MDT, as we had mentioned earlier, has partnered with Robert Pesce and Associates to evaluate the current and future needs for this intersection. The first step of this study is data collection, and you've probably already seen some of this activity occurring out here and see the remnants of the flags for marking the different features that our surveyors are picking up. With this data collection, it includes but is not limited to public outreach like we're doing today, surveying, collecting additional traffic data, geotechnical drilling, and identifying any environmental constraints that are out there. This information will help the team develop a list of feasible options. With those options, they will be evaluated through the intersection control evaluation, or also known as the ICE process. This is a qualitative, objective, step-by-step process developed by the Federal Highway Administration to analyze how well each option resolves the identified issues we're seeing at this intersection. This means that the team will be looking at all the constraints and needs that are in this specific area. With this safety project, safety for all users is a priority. Using the results of the ICE process and the public input we receive, the project team will select the single preferred option that will be carried forward to design. Before we move into the design phase, we will be going back to the public to share the results of this ICE process. Once we do get into the design phase, the team will develop the costs for the project and the approximate timeframe for construction. At this time, we're anticipating that the study will wrap up in early 2022, but that is pending any unforeseen complications that should occur as we go through this development. Christine, did you want to share another survey question right now?
Thanks, Jacqueline. I do. I have one more survey question, and that is, what are your primary concerns for this intersection? Thank you. Looks like high traffic volumes and access in and out of all of those facilities near the intersection are the primary concerns of our attendees tonight. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Jacqueline, and she's going to talk to us about the timeline.
Yep. So there are several things that must happen before a project like this goes to construction. And this timeline here that we're showing you outlines what we anticipate for this project. So you can see here we start with the study phase. This is the current phase of the project that we are in right now. This is where we're going to just really be focusing on identifying the needs, the constraints, and selecting a preferred alternative to move forward. From there, we'll go to the design phase where we will work on the design for that preferred alternative. This will also get us the cost estimate that we need to secure the funding for the construction of the project. Once we have the funding secured to deliver the project, we will then go move into construction. And while this is a straight line diagram, and as I talk through it, it sounds relatively simple, there is quite a bit of time and effort that does go into this. So this could be a pretty time intensive process, just depending on what really are the constraints that we end up facing out there. I do want to emphasize that during all of these phases, public involvement is very key for the success of the project, and we will be reaching out to you and seeking and welcoming input all the way through the project, even during construction. So just thank you for participating in this meeting today, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Christine, would you like to continue?
Yes, thanks so much. I really appreciate all of your help with this presentation this evening. As promised, here is my contact information for those of you who are interested in reaching out following this presentation. I want to remind you that this open house is not the end of our public outreach efforts. You'll have opportunities to provide input throughout this study process. This is just the beginning of our exploration into what the needs of this intersection are and the comments from those of you who live and drive through the intersection regularly. If you'd like to reach out to me via email, I can be reached at Christine with a K, Kristine at bigskypublicrelations.com, or you can feel free to call the project hotline at 406-207-4484. Again, that's 406-207-4484. And our project hotline is open for calls on regular weekdays, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And of course, you can always find more information on our project webpage, and that is bit.ly/Clearwater Junction intersection. So at this point in the presentation, we'd like to turn things over to you. If you've got questions or comments about the intersection, we'd love to hear from you. This is a great opportunity to get those questions answered by our project team. So go ahead and enter your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll answer them as quickly as we can as we go through this. If you have a particularly long question or comment that you'd like to add, go ahead and just give us a quick note that you have a long question, and we'll be sure to wait so that we don't cut you off before you're able to ask your question.
Christine, We didn't share the results of the first two polling questions, and I didn't know if you wanted to maybe do that now while people are typing in their questions.
Thanks, Cameron. Let me see if I can pull those up. Here are the results from the first polling question. Where do you live in relation to the Clearwater Junction intersection? And it looks like everyone on our call today lives within 25 miles of the intersection. So that's pretty close, especially considering how spread out we are in Montana. So these are all people living fairly close to the intersection. And polling question 2 was, how frequently do you drive through the intersection? And 100% of our attendees that responded said they live, or excuse me, that they drive through the intersection more than 3 times a week. So these are all folks that are regularly utilizing this intersection. Thanks for that reminder, Cameron. I appreciate it. Katie, do we have any comments that questions that we can address at this time?
We have one from Kristen, and she is asking, will the range of alternatives include possible speed limit changes? So Bob, I'll turn that over to you first.
Thanks, Katie. So will the range of possible alternatives include speed limit changes? There is a potential that speed limit changes could be, we could see some change that. Generally, my guess is that it's going to take more than just a simple speed limit change, but definitely speed limit changes could be incorporated into a final solution. I'll ask April if you have any other thoughts on that subject, though.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Going off the question just a little bit, we have found in the past that simply changing the speed limit doesn't tend to have really significant results or changes to people's and drivers' behaviors unless there is either some sort of physical or geometric change to the roadway that encourages them to slow down, which can be a lot of different items. You can see transverse rubble strips, those are the ones that go all the way across the roadway. Obviously the signage, sometimes the flashing lights or the little boards that reflect your speed as you come into a speed zone study, or even building infrastructure like curb and gutter or roundabouts. So although we would love to see speeds reduced in so many of these areas where we know speed is part of a contributing factor to crashes, it usually does take more than just adding speed limit signs to see a result from that.
Thanks, April. I think that's really great context. And Kristen, certainly if you have additional comments or questions around that, either add those back into the Q&A and we can revisit, or you could email Christine at a later date. Next, we have a question from Bill, and he's wondering about the area around Clearwater. And so he specifically asks if the rest area and scale will remain or if they will be eliminated. So Bob, back over to you.
Yeah, so the MDT fully intends on continuing with the rest area and a weigh scale facility at that location. There is potential that they could be altered from their current location, or they could be, the access points in and out. There could be changes to it, but at the completion of the project, there is no intent to eliminate the facilities in the area.
Thank you, Bob, and great question, Bill. Again, as I'd mentioned with Kristen, if you have additional questions around that, feel free to let us know. But at this time, those were the 2 questions that we had pop up. So as Cameron had alluded to, we think we will continue to stay on the line for a couple of minutes. And if somebody is trying to ask us something or provide a comment that's a little bit longer, you could maybe first shoot us a quick note that says, hey, I'm typing. And that'll give us an opportunity to know we need to stay on the line. And you are also, of course, always welcome to reach out to us in any of the manners listed here on this site. But with that, Christine, I might turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Again, I just want to thank everyone for taking some time to jump on this meeting and offer your input. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions following this presentation or anytime throughout the study, please reach out to me. Again, my email is christine@bigskypublicrelations.com. And I'd be happy to answer your questions or get you connected with a member of the project team that may have more information. As Katie said, we'll stay on for just another minute in the event that someone's got a question that they would like to have addressed while we're on this meeting. Otherwise, again, I just thank you for your time and I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Oh, looks like Kristen had a second question. So Bob, I'll get this one back over to you. She's asking if the goal is to address multiple possible issues like safety and traffic flow. So could we maybe clarify what we're trying to get out of this study? Bobby could maybe start us off and then maybe turn it over to April if needed.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the goal is that we do want to address as many issues as we can. And two key components to this intersection are the safety of the intersection and just what our traffic flow is, or what our capacity is for the intersection. How can we improve that summer surge that we see in particular? So we will be addressing both of those. April, do you have any further details you want to look at or to go into at this point?
No, Bob, I think you covered that, very well. Just to confirm what you said, that if we're going into the intersection and we know there's multiple issues, we sure would like to address just as much as we possibly could.
One of the key components for everything that we're doing with MDT right now is just being totally cognizant of our role as we need to utilize the limited funding we have as judiciously as possible. We need to make certain that we are maximizing the limited dollars we have to solve the problems out there and enhance the facilities we have in the best way, the most economical and the most overall effective way out there. So that is something that we strive for on every project that we take on.
Well summarized, Bob, and I don't see any other questions. I think that's probably a really great place for us to leave with just that general goal is any with this project or any that MDT approaches. So Christine, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, a big thank you to our project team for taking time to be with us here tonight and address these issues and answer some questions. And thanks again to our participants for taking time to learn more about this study. Please reach out if you have any additional questions or comments. I'm happy to answer any of those. I hope you all have a lovely evening.